So the ball just magically popped out. That's what it sort of seemed like. That's not really what happened. Jarvis Jones happened. And what I'm talking about is the 2012 Georgia Florida game. This is one of actually the best Georgia Florida games I can remember. It had some of the highest stakes. The team that won the game would go on to actually play Alabama to win the national championship, as it turns out, and that team was Georgia. But that whole night, um, the Dogs and Gators were in a real big fight, like physical, tough. This was a tough Florida team. This is what I think Will Muschamp's teams were going to look like at Florida. That was his vision, and they were going to try to grind you out. But there were a lot of things that really got in the Gators' way that night, and the biggest one was Jarvis. And today, Jarvis was inducted into Georgia's Circle of Honor, joining Jack Bowerly, Courtney Capetz. In doing so, that group is the Circle of Honor for 2023. Jack Bowerly has won a little bit through the years, and then Courtney Capetz, obviously one of the most gifted, talented, winningest gymnasts in NCAA history. Just an amazing career for her. But with Jarvis, I remember, so much was missing in the 2010 team, and two things changed from the 2010 defense to the 2011 defense. Jarvis, and then John Jenkins. Those two things were the primary things that changed for the Dogs, and that changed everything. Jarvis's ability to pressure, to just be disruptive was significant. Jarvis ranks third in the history of the UGA with 28 sacks in just 2 seasons. Third in tackles for loss with 44. He was the Associated Press Defensive Player of the Year in 2012. He was a first-round draft pick. And as usual, I have images. So Jarvis is one of the guys that, we shot a lot at Georgia. And, I should not forget the 2011 game with the Gators either. That was a hugely important game for Georgia. A game that probably, if Georgia loses that game, Mark Richt doesn't make it to 2012. But this is Jarvis and John with, I think, a fan. That is not Todd Grantham's son, I don't think. But Todd's son was around a lot. But with that hair, I mean, he still got that hair a little bit, I feel like. But this is what he did to Florida. I mean, he was particularly good against Florida. John Brantley almost stood no chance that night in 2011. This was an exceptional team. I want to tell you one other thing real quick. Let me just promo real quick, though. If you want to be a member of Dog Post, we've got a great deal for you right now. Sign up right down below and get our 2023 magazine included for free. You get it for free. You also get this for free. 20% off any item at Red Zone. They're going to email you. It's not going to come immediately after you sign up, but they're going to email you. You're going to get 20% off any item. It can be nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, like Kirby had to say. It can be, the Vince Dooley hat or the modified Vince Dooley hat. This hat has kind of really sold, so you've been warned. There are other hats. And then they're also going to send you another shirt. If you have purchased Double Dogs or the magazine, you will get September off. So you will not be charged for September. So when billing comes around at that point, you will not be charged. So take advantage of this. This is an awesome offer. I did want to talk real quick about another Jarvis story. And it was after this game right here. And this was when I think I knew the grown-ups were back in charge at Georgia. This is 2011. This is Jarvis and Marcus Lattimore. It's just a random image. And Georgia lost this game, but they were the better team. And, this was the week after they lost to Boise, and which was here. That was a rough one. That's not a good image, by the way. But Jarvis sat in the old locker room. He was talking to me and I think another reporter, although I do not remember who the reporter was. It might have been David Pascal. But he sat and he had like a smile on his face, like a kind of a grin. He had been to SC and his career almost ended for football. And he said, I know we're a good team. I know we're a good team. And we're going to show that. Now, it wasn't some Tim Tebow type speech or, all that stuff. But it was a calm adult look at the world. And when Georgia needed Jarvis, he was there for Georgia, period. Now, in 2012, it took a little bit of time for these guys to get right. But this was a very good defense. Here's Jordan Jenkins and Jarvis together after the season concluded. This is a great image. This is Artie Lynch is in the background there with, I think, David Andrews. But that's Jarvis and Connor Norman. They're both in the program right now. And this was just before the game with Alabama. Talk about an epic game. Woo! I've seen a lot of epic games at Georgia. And that was one of them for sure. But that year in 12, Jarvis was, to say he was the leader is perhaps an understatement. He was the guy that, got Georgia to about as close to winning the national championship as the team had been in a very long time. And here's this picture here. I still remember taking this. So this about a minute and a half left. We're really not supposed to be where I am right here. But, I know Jarvis well enough to talk just briefly with him. And even at the time I did. This also reminds me of another Jarvis story. Oh my God, I have so many Jarvis stories. But this is him after 2012. Georgia knew they'd won the game. And I'm telling you now, not all Georgia Floridas are created equally. This was one of the most intense Georgia Floridas I've been around. And I've been on the field for a quarter century. So this was him right after they knew they were going to win. And he had tortured Florida's quarterback, which I think was Jeff Driscoll. And at that point, we pretty well knew Georgia was going to the SEC championship to play Alabama. Now, this was the Sean Williams game, but they just terrorized Driscoll. And the Gators, generally speaking, I mean, Florida could not score. There's a Marlowe with them right there. I mean, this is wheelhouse. I know a lot of these guys are older now. Here's Jarvis right here at Kentucky. They took him to get treatment and to help lead. Well, they needed him on the field that night. If they didn't have Aaron, they would not have won that game. But I think, here's one more. Okay, sorry. This is Jarvis and Maria Taylor. Maria, if you're seeing this, you can text me and let me know. I can send you that image. But this here too, there's a better one. I want to try to get to it. Of Jarvis really just changing the game completely against Missouri. Here he is with Sean Williams with no people in the background. So here's this game with Georgia, Florida in 2012. Sean Williams was not pleased with the way the Dogs were playing, and they were not playing well. They had gotten slaughtered at Carolina, and they barely hung on against Kentucky. I mean, these are sort of performances that you don't see anymore from Georgia under Kirby. Just up and down and down and up, and it takes a second to get going. You don't see that anymore. But these two guys, I mean, I wouldn't mess with Sean Williams. I would not mess with Sean Williams. I mean, they were so locked in that night defensively that they were not going to get beat. But here's the play I'm talking about. So Georgia's up maybe 7 or 4, whatever it was. And James Franklin, it's the first game at Missouri ever in the SEC for the Tigers. And here comes Jarvis Jones, man. This guy was relentless. He would not let them lose. He strips the ball, starts running forward with it. He strips the ball, recovers the ball. He almost scored a touchdown that night on that play. I feel like I have a better image of that, but that was just the guy would go get the ball. You see how many of these images where the ball is not where it's supposed to be if you're on offense? That was Jarvis Jones. That and the fact that he was an adult. I mean, both of those things were just so I don't have anything bad about it. I mean, Jarvis was about as good a Georgia player, about as decent a human being as you're going to get. And, he is important. I don't know what he does in the program now, but he's as important as anybody for these younger players. Because, again, when I talk about adults, I'm talking about people like Jarvis. And he was inducted into the Circle of Honor today at Georgia. And I'm not even going to go back to me. I just think this is a great way to end the video.